Welcome, everybody, to the Table Rush Talk Show, where I interview entrepreneurs that are creating real businesses that make real money, and that serve their customers to the highest possible level. Today, I interview chiropractor Dr. Ian Hoffman, and he created the Student Loan Eraser program. His clients, the doctors that are in his program, are going to save over $100 million from their student loans. And the best part, in the 6 years that he has been teaching the Student Loan Eraser program, his clients will have started over 400 charities that are taking care of over 10,000 nonprofit visits a month. Incredible. Enjoy this interview with Dr. Ian Hoffman. He's an amazing man with an amazing story. Welcome, everybody, to the Table Rush Masterclass, where we get back to the marketing and sales basics to help you, the listener, the viewer, to grow your business to $1 million and beyond. And I am very, very blessed today to introduce everybody to Dr. Ian Hoffman. Welcome, Dr. Hoffman.
Thanks, Misha. Glad to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. So we chatted very briefly, maybe a week or two ago when we were setting this up, and it's a big gift for me to have you on here, because whether you know it or not, you were a massive inspiration for me, and actually ultimately the creation of this show, because via mutual friend, I started getting introduced to funnels, webinars, all this stuff. And this mutual friend was like, oh yeah, my buddy effectively, Ian, has just doing amazing stuff. And I was just captivated, right? I was like, oh my God, this is like 3 years ago. So to have you on, super awesome. So thank you for joining.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. So real quick, you have a program, and it's called the Student Loan Eraser, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. And so go ahead, tell me about that, and then let's talk about how you came to that and were able to bring it to market.
Sure. It's definitely a passion project of mine. You know how it's I just feel like it was what I was put on this planet to do right now, which is an amazing feeling. So I'm actually a chiropractor, to get into backstory.
Yeah.
My dad's a chiropractor. Both of his brothers are chiropractors. I was born into that also. And I love being a chiropractor. And so what happened was I was, like 3 years into practice. My son was just born. I just came back to the office after taking a couple of weeks off. And this pregnant mom came in as a new patient, and she brought her 4-year-old daughter to the appointment. And this little girl had stage 4 cancer. That's the first thing that this mom said to me is my little girl. I lost it. I couldn't imagine. No parent should have to go through that. No child should have to go through that. Yeah. So to make a long story short, that little girl really inspired me to actually start a nonprofit organization, a charity, to expand access to chiropractic and holistic healthcare for underserved in my community. And as I was going through that process, it was right around the same time that I was really doing some research online about my student loans, because I had a lot of debt. I remember having this, I hope I can say this oh shit moment.
Yes.
Yeah, but because I remember I had just bought a house, and between my wife, myself, our student loans, our cars, our mortgage, we had over $1 million in debt. And that's a heavy weight. Yeah. That's a heavy weight on somebody's shoulders. Yeah. So
especially, how old were you at the time?
Oh man. 29, 30 years old, 30, 31, something around there. Yeah.
And you have a young child. That's heavy.
Yeah, it was heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I started reading about this federal program called Public Service Loan Forgiveness, I my heart kind of skipped a beat. I had first read about it before I had even had this idea to start a nonprofit. And so there's only 3 requirements, but one of the major requirements is that you have to have qualifying employment. You have to work for the government or a nonprofit to be eligible. And then once I had started my own nonprofit, I had this kind of eureka moment that I might have reverse engineered my own eligibility. And that's exactly what happened. So, fast forward a couple years from there, I wound up starting the Student Loan Eraser. I put together this whole team, and we help doctors start charities with a dual purpose, which is to make the world a better place and get their student loans erased.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been quite a process. The transition wasn't easy. I was in practice full time, coming home, having dinner with my family. They would go to bed. I'd be up till sometimes 2, 3 in the morning, writing the webinars, writing the emails, just getting the infrastructure together, reading .com secrets, just feeding my mind and getting educated on how to launch an online program, because it's something I'd never done before.
So you have the epiphany. You're like, oh my gosh, you're in the middle of creating this nonprofit. You find out, here's a way for me to erase my debt, which, if you don't mind me asking, what was that number for you? What was the chunk of that, of your total debt?
I borrowed around 150,000, and it was only going up because most doctors are on an income-driven repayment plan where their monthly payment is actually less than the debt, less than the interest. Yeah. And so what happens is that on these income-driven plans, they'll pay for 25 years. And at that point, anything that's left is forgiven, but the forgiven debt gets taxed as income. And so once I heard that, I'm like, man, this is a black hole, because I'm going to just pay for, till I'm 55, 60 years old. And at that point, I would still have a 6-figure tax bill.
And you're at the 40%, maybe your whatever the gradient tax bracket is 40%. So I'm in California.
So between federal and state taxes, it probably would have been closer to 50%.
Man,
it's crazy.
So we're talking about a real number here, perhaps 75,000 plus, or since it's actually your debt's incrementally growing because you're paying less than the amount.
Correct.
Next thing you know, you've got 200 or whatever that number is.
Yeah.
And so
I tell most people to think about it like their mortgage. Over 30 years, whatever your purchase price is, for on average, right? Interest rate plays a role, but most people are going to pay double whatever their purchase price was over 30 years.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I was thinking about my student loans is if I borrowed 150,000 over 25 years, it wouldn't quite double because I was making payments, but all of the monthly payment was going to interest only. I wasn't actually taking care of any of the principal.
Yeah. So you have the reverse engineer moment and you're in the fire, right? Of this $1 million debt load. I've been there and it's heavy, right? That's a heavy load when you're trying to build a business. You've got a son, right? And so trying to balance like time with family with I get it. It's heavy. I've been there.
Sure.
But tell me about the moment of that you go, oh my gosh, a reverse. And was it like an overnight epiphany? I could help people with this. And then, or was that a slow build?
It was an overnight epiphany. And then the infrastructure was a slow build.
Okay.
It took me about a year and a half after starting my own nonprofit to feel comfortable enough with the process to build the team, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, I don't do those things.
Yeah.
So I need to. Russell Brunson says it's the who, not the how.
Yeah.
So I needed to find the right people. To put together the team. I needed to write the webinar. I needed to really feel confident that at the end of the day I could deliver on the promise, because I know how much my student loans caused anxiety for me and sleepless nights. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to help anyone take that on without really being certain that we could help them reach that goal at the end of the day of starting the nonprofit and then being able to qualify for, public service loan forgiveness.
Yep.
So it took quite some time.
Yeah. So love Russell Brunson, right? I love his .com secrets, expert secrets, all that stuff. I'm in his high-end coaching group, so thriving in there. But what about finding that? Like, what was the journey to? All right, I can help people. How'd you stumble across Russell Brunson, or was that like someone said, "Oh, you have this great idea, try this guy," and you're like, "Okay," or was that a rocky transition?
I think that's the genius of Russell Brunson and his marketing. He's really good about getting in front of the right people at the right time. You know what I mean? I don't even know how I came across his material. I'm sure I was just searching online for, how to launch or how to write a webinar, or how to do an online program. And I had come across other, other teachers actually before Russell Brunson. And it's really funny. One of the people that I wound up doing a little work with early on, even before Russell Brunson, is Bailey Richert.
Yes.
And I wound up hearing her on a podcast and then reached out to her, and I did her Infopreneur Institute, I think is what it's called.
Yes.
That was fantastic. So I had other mentors along the way. But and she was fantastic.
Did you do her summit and all that, or no?
I didn't do her summit, but she has an online training, that teaches you how to go from, I think, almost nothing, just concept idea, to just step by step how to get your first online program launched.
Yes.
And so I did that, and it was fantastic. It really helped me to clarify my vision and who was I serving and those kind of details. And then it turns out later she wound up working with Russell Brunson. And so it's a really small world in the online marketing space.
Yeah, fantastic. So your entry into Russell Brunson land was Bailey Rickert. You take her Infopreneur, whatever it's called, academy. And that's how the idea for the webinar starts to come to fruition, and you start crafting it there. Then you end up in Russell Brunson land. Is that the
timeline is a little hazy because I was doing a lot of things all at the same time. I was trying to educate myself. So I read a book, also written by a chiropractor. I'm blanking on his name, but it's called Social Media Made Me Rich. And I read, I was really just I was listening to podcasts, reading books. I was really just trying to get an education on this space. So, and at the same time, I was, I live in Carlsbad, California. And there's an amazing, podcast called, oh man, I'm blanking on the name of it too. Anyway, there's an amazing podcast on, I think it's the Online Marketing Made Simple or Made Easy podcast. But she teaches webinars and her strategies. And so I've gone through multiple iterations of my current webinar. I did probably 8 or 10 live webinars, recorded them all, made little notes, figured out what questions people were asking, tried to, answer those questions in advance as I kept going.
Yes.
And then finally got to the one where we had a really great response as far as sales and people staying to the end of the webinar. And that one eventually went on evergreen.
Fantastic. And so is this what we would call a high ticket webinar? So you're trying, when I look at your webinar or your landing page, yes, reserve my seat now. Great news. Well, I'll tell you exactly what it says. Plus, get a free phone call consultation at the end of the web class. Yeah. So you're driving phone calls, or do you have do it yourself course, a I'll help you course, I'll do it all for you course, or
Great
what's
question.
your, yeah.
I only have one. It's not a traditional funnel from the standpoint of like I only have one offer, and that offer converts. And so really it's $5,000 to $7,000. And at that price point, I think that most people, I've had a few people who clicked an ad, they watched the webinar and they signed up without ever talking to me. And
That's
yeah, that's super cool. And I was excited about that. But the truth is, I wanted to also be able to qualify my clients.
mm,
And so I don't mind jumping on a 15 to 30-minute call with prospects to really get a feel for who they are, make sure their heart's in the right place with all of this, make
yes,
sure that we would work well together,
yes,
and to answer their questions, make sure that they know that there's a human behind this, you know?
yeah, yeah,
So my funnel now is different. It changes over time, right?
sure,
But my funnel now basically is register for the web class. That is the most important first step because I want people, frankly, to be pre-educated before they jump on the call with me. I want them
mm,
to be able to ask the right questions, to at least have a basic understanding of the public service loan forgiveness program, about their student loans, about ways that we can help before they get on the call, so that when I get on the call and answer questions, then it's a simple conversation of, you know, what's going on? How can I help? What questions do you have? Let's
yeah,
address those and then sign up.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it saves me a lot of time because before I was spending between 30 minutes to an hour with each prospect, you know, sometimes multiple phone calls going over the same material. And that's where a webinar is really helpful in kind of
and,
pre-educating and doing the sales process for me.
yep, answering all the questions that you know the top questions, or the top in sales line, let's call it rebuttals, right?
Right.
But let's talk about it it's more from a service standpoint though. You're like, hey, I have this vision, this helped me, I want to help you. Not only is it helping you, the doctor, because it's saving you money and clearing debt and relieving stress and all this stuff, at the same time you get to have a passion project and help the world, right? Which
Yeah,
some
exactly.
section of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I found
That's,
that most doctors that I talk to are already doing some form of this. I think most people got into healthcare because they want to help people. You
yeah.
know, that's been really beautiful for me to see as I'm talking and consulting with doctors. And it doesn't matter what the degree is, dentists, chiropractors, naturopathic doctors, you name it.
Yeah.
Most of them are already providing some level of discount or free care for people in need. And so they're just not doing it through a nonprofit. So we formalize that. We formalize
Mm,
their way of giving back, and they're able to qualify for student loan forgiveness as a result.
that's amazing. I love that. It's amazing. I just think it's my favorite thing. My goal is to help people, right? I'm like, and so to hear you talk about the win-win-win scenario, that's like the best in the world right now. And I think that's what's genius about Russell Brunson too, right? He's like, hey man, entrepreneurs are the people that are gonna save the world, shall we say, or make it better, right? and
Totally.
and to have that win-win-win situation that you have created, or the universe helped you create, however you want to say it,
Totally.
is beautiful and inspiring. So thank you. I have a quick question. Your frustration. Well, I want to start with the who and not the how, because that's such a powerful concept. Building the team, and you said it like it was easy. Oh yeah, I just needed to build the team and make this happen.
Yeah.
Well, no, maybe you're like, I'll do this myself, and quickly you realize this is going to be a Herculean effort. I need help. Or tell me about that sort of process.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think it's a matter of taking inventory and knowing yourself and your strengths and what you're good at and what you enjoy, and also what do you not want to do? What do you not enjoy?
Mm,
What lowers your energy? And so for me, I love writing. So writing the copy, writing the webinar, that I enjoyed that process. But I didn't want to take on even the responsibility of filing these tax forms with the IRS and filing the articles of incorporation, and that legal work is something I knew nothing about and I wasn't motivated to learn.
Yeah.
So it's also that is finding out, where are the gaps between where you are and where you want to be, and then filling in those gaps either by educating yourself and then doing it, or if you find that you're not motivated, you need to find someone else who that's what they do. So, so I wound up originally working with the firm that started my own nonprofit. I brought this to them, and they said great, and we brought that to the scale that they could handle. They were a smaller firm, and then I wound up finding a bigger firm to work with. And wound up transitioning over. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the process, is just knowing yourself and what you love and trying to do that.
Did you formalize that, or was that all sort of intuitive for you? And when I say that, I mean, did you literally sit down and write out, okay, this is what I'm good at, this is what I need help with?
Yeah,
or was it? Yeah, go.
I didn't do that. I wrote out kind of the curriculum and the steps of what's the client's journey, right? So once I really went through the process of, okay, here's my modules, here's my system, my formula for the big promise of start a nonprofit and qualify for student loan forgiveness. What are the steps that people need to go through along that journey to really get that end result that I'm trying to promise people? And then I was able to really clearly see what part of those steps can I teach? What can I help people with? What can we do for them? And then what do I need help with? Where can I fill in the gaps with other services?
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. Question in regards to Avatar. You mentioned that, and everybody watching and listening, Avatar is speak for your perfect customer, the exact person you want to work with. I know for a lot of us, for me, that's an elusive concept, or can be shifting, or the conversations I keep having are make it super narrow. And so I'll go super narrow. And then the people that are telling me to go narrow inevitably say that's too narrow, or so tell me about your Avatar process.
Totally. I'm a big believer in, for me personally, it was a little easier, I think, than some, because I am my avatar. I was a doctor with 6 figures of student debt, and there are doctors with multiple 6 figures of student loan debt. And so my avatar was really anyone I've worked with people that are not doctors, but really my avatar is anyone with over 6 figures of student loan debt. Yes. Who has a service-based business.
Okay.
So that's the most general avatar, but the people who have the most student loan debt naturally are doctors and lawyers, people who went to grad school. So that's where it went. But the reason it's so important to have an avatar is because along this process of building a funnel, building a business, one of the most important aspects of that is, where am I going to get traffic? How am I going to put my ads in front of the right people? And so for me, I know I can get my ads in front of chiropractors, naturopathic doctors, dentists, physical therapists, osteopathic doctors. Those are my vertical markets. And unless you have that avatar specifically drawn out, it's really hard to target.
And then the ad process just is too inefficient. You can't. Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who wants to pay for ads that go to the wrong person? That's someone who's not even interested or a qualified lead.
Yeah. Yeah. How was that? Do you do the ads, or did you bring in did you bring in a who to do that for you?
I've done both. What I tend to do in my journey, my learning process, is I want to learn as much as I can and try it myself first, and then hire an expert so that
Mm.
I know what questions to ask. I know I can get to a certain point. They better beat me. They better get better results than I did if they're doing this as a professional.
I love
So
that.
that's just how I am.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. I did really well early on in Facebook ads, but then it became complicated because Facebook changed their marketing policy related to student loan type advertising.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, people talk all the time about Facebook slaps and Google
Yeah,
slaps
yeah.
and
Google. Yeah. You
traffic
had
going away
one or
overnight.
two. Tell me about
Yeah.
it. Oh
So
my God.
yeah, it happened. And so then, again, it's the who, not the how. I didn't want to become a Facebook ad specialist on top of everything else I was doing. So then you find the right team who can get you back where you want to be.
And so was that an overnight crack on the side of the head? Like your business effectively shut down?
I wouldn't say it shut down. So that is actually the power of having an email list, right?
Okay.
So that's where I'm really glad that I was collecting emails for people who joined my webinar, because there were a lot of people on my email list who hadn't bought. And so what I was able to do once traffic shut down, as I was working on getting that back up with ads, I had an email list of about 4,000 doctors by that point. So I really started emailing my list more frequently, and getting them back engaged, and sending them more information, and really just being more active with that. And that was able to drive sales for a considerable amount of time, as rebuilding the ads.
That's fantastic. So let's dive into this email list a little bit. You have a nurture campaign, which means, do you email consistently, or is it so there's that question. And do you outsource that process, or tell me about your nurturing of your list?
Yeah. I don't outsource that. I enjoy writing. That's one of the things that I enjoy. So for me, and I think those emails are those are really important. And I want people to get that kind of information directly from the source, directly from me. So I don't hire out for that. And I could probably be better about this, but when there's news, when there's, especially in 2021, there's been a lot of news, political news related to student loans. President Biden has already erased billions of dollars of student loan debt that President Trump never did, for people who have, for example, who were defrauded by their schools and their schools shut down. They didn't get their degree. Or for people who have a total and permanent disability. Now they can get student loan forgiveness. And so I follow these things in the world of student loans, and I send, information as it comes up to my list. One of the most recent developments in the world of public service loan forgiveness is that before there was a very low acceptance rate into the public service loan forgiveness program, hovering around 2% actually, which is terrible. And that's because, there are 3 requirements to qualify. There's actually 4 different types of federal student loans. Only one type qualifies for this program. There are like 9 different repayment plan options. 5 of those are income-driven repayment. Those are the ones that qualify. And then you had to have qualifying employment with the government or a nonprofit. And the student loan industry is so complex. I personally believe it's designed to confuse so that people overpay. I mean, that's just what it is, right?
Yes.
So unfortunately, unless people have done the homework and the research like I did to say, most people don't even know what type of student loans they have. Let's start there. So 15% of PSLF denials were because people just didn't have the right type of student loans. And they weren't being told that there's a free process that can turn any of the other types of federal student loans into the type that qualifies. So that's the first step with my program. I look at what type of loans they have, what repayment plan they're in, and we make sure that they meet those first 2 requirements. But because the program was so messed up, recently, I think it was President Biden or the administration said, we're gonna wipe away those first two requirements. So now any type of student loans on any repayment plan, as long as you're a government and nonprofit employee, you can qualify for public service loan forgiveness right now. So they actually made it easier than ever before to enroll in this program.
Wow. That's amazing. So you're disseminating information like that to your list and useful information. And obviously, strangely, it's either a blessing or a curse. You're fascinated by the
Sure.
by the student loan process.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, I wouldn't say I was originally fascinated by it, but I think originally when I went to try to get my first mortgage, I was told that my income was good, but my debt to income ratio was all messed up because of the student loans.
Yes.
So I really got inspired to understand my student loans so that they didn't hold me back in life. You know what I mean? And then meeting that little girl with stage 4 cancer and everything else that came after, it really was, the universe or something aligned to help this product, this service come to fruition.
Yeah. I don't mean to go political, but I'm going to. It almost seems to me, and I've had this thought, that a lot of these schools were literally created as a vehicle to create student loan debt, right? Like almost people with lots of money were like, we want to collateralized debt or securitized debt obligations or whatever, the bond market, right?
Sure.
And so they're like, all right, we want student loans. The government will subsidize it, right? So
Right.
you got venture capitalists with billions of dollars that want to create CDOs or collateralized debt obligations. There we go. And so they're like, how can we do this? I mean, this is just a theory. I don't mean to go,
Sure.
but maybe you could speak to that for a second. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, go ahead.
I mean, I have heard a few different, theories as far as the student debt crisis in America and how it came to happen. And, I think that what we do know is that part of the issue is that tuition has just gone up and up and up and up, far faster than the cost than the salaries that the degrees people are being trained in provide. And so, but the reason that they're doing that is because the schools know what someone can borrow. So if someone can borrow $10,000 a quarter, they're going to make their tuition, whatever the very minimum that somebody can have for room and board.
Yes.
That plus tuition is $10,000. So I think that's more the issue, is that it's not commensurate with what someone can expect to earn from that degree. It's not. There's a lot of unethical practices. I would say, but most importantly is just that people aren't being educated on the responsibilities that they're taking on when, if I was 20, I'm trying to think of when I started at chiropractic school, graduated high school at 18, college at 22. So if I was 22 years old and I went to try to get a mortgage for 6 figures, there's no way. But sure, we can give you 6 figures, of debt for college, right? So and it's a trap, unfortunately, for a lot of people. I value my education to no end, and I would do whatever it took to repay my debt. And I was on that path. I was, whether it was making my monthly payments and then paying the tax bill, or earning more and paying it off more quickly. I would have done whatever I could. It wasn't about getting out of the debt,
Yes.
but the fact that there's a federal program out there that would erase my debt because I was helping more people and providing a public service, I was all after that.
I love it. That's a great, great way to frame it. You were committed to like, hey, I have this debt. I took it on. I'm willing to be responsible for it. I'm as a matter of fact, I'm trying to pay it off sooner so I can be a responsible consumer or whatever. Like reduce the lifetime interest on the damn thing or stuff, right? Like and yeah, but then you figure out an ethical way. I didn't even think about this. You're like, oh, wait a minute, like I'm trying to be responsible. Here's an alt solution to be responsible. And yeah, it's beautiful. Did I frame that right? Or did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And I go back to, you asked about the student loan industry as a whole. And I think what's crazy is when the banks needed a bailout, the federal government gave them that bailout at 0.75% interest rate. When I got my student loans, it was 6.8%.
Oh my gosh.
So why that feels backwards to me,
yes.
Right? Why are we bailing out banks at 0.75% when a student who wants to become educated and become a doctor, we're going to put them into student debt slavery for the rest of their life? It doesn't make sense. So I do feel in some senses like a Robin Hood, trying to, because the student loan industry is huge. There's $1.5 trillion of student loan debt out there. It's more than credit cards and car loans combined. So it affects 45 million Americans. It's a huge issue. And that's why I feel really good about helping people to sleep better at night, to get that student loan monkey off their back and to give back in the process.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. Let me ask you a question. As far as like internally, you're coming across these professionals, medical professionals who are, have this burden, who are trying to do the right thing and they're kind of doing the philanthropic thing. They might not even know it. It sounds like, right? They have the activities and you can wrap that nonprofit around it. What's like the thing that they're thinking in their head that they're like, this doesn't make sense? What's that? You know what I'm saying? Like how do you, what is that thing that doctor in that situation internally is like, yeah, but like, what's that thing
regarding my program?
Yeah. Regarding your
like
program.
What's the biggest obstacle for them to sign up?
Like that internal where they're thinking like, well, I can't do it, or I don't have the time, or what's the thing that stops people from taking advantage of this amazing thing internally, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Right. Like,
I mean, I think most often it's that we have this silly phrase that, if something sounds too good to be true, right? So I do hear that. And, there, unfortunately, it's an industry where there are some scams out there. There are people taking advantage. And so I understand when my clients have questions and they want to do their due diligence. And that's why I stopped selling the program directly from the webinar. And I want people to get on the phone with me because I want them to hear my heart and my purpose behind this. And I want to make sure that they're aligned with that. And I want to make sure that they understand that it's not me personally offering to forgive their student loan debt. And they do have responsibilities when they decide to join my program. They have to run the nonprofit effectively. They have to learn the difference between how to run a nonprofit versus a for-profit. We do all that training, but I have this great quote from nonprofitquarterly.org. They said 6 months of executive training for nonprofit professionals on compliance costs between $4,000 and $30,000. And that's included in my program because I want people not just to help them start a nonprofit. I want them to be trained so they can run it effectively in compliance with state and federal regulations. And so that means that they are taking on a different responsibility. Instead of paying their student loan debt, they need to know that they are now going to learn how to run a nonprofit and how to do that effectively, how to avoid conflicts of interest, and how to, to meet the specific requirements for public service loan forgiveness. So
you help them do all that.
We help them do all of that.
Is that like the biggest sort of outside issue that a medical professional is going to feel when they come across this idea? Your student loan, I forgot the name. I'm sorry. Student loan eraser. Is that like the thing where they're like, wait a minute, this sounds too good to be true, but then they get you on the phone and they feel your heart and they say, oh no, this is real. I can do this. But then they're like, uh-oh, there's this outside stuff. Like, is it that compliance piece, or is it, well, my wife's going to think I'm crazy, or what? Yeah. What's that?
So first, it's too good to be true. And then it's the other two big ones, time and money, right? So how much is this going to cost, and how long is it going to take for me to get it set up? What are my time requirements in running the nonprofit? What do those things look like? So those are all important questions that most people have. That I address to a certain extent on the webinar, because I know everyone has those questions. But then we go deeper on the phone calls.
Okay, cool. And what's like the epiphany moment for them where they're like, oh my gosh, I have to do this? Like, you know what I mean?
Most people know they have to do it when they look at how much student loan debt they have. When they look at their options, because the truth is, I break it down. There's three ways to get out of your student loan debt, right?
Yeah.
Number one, you can pay for 25. Let's say 4 years. You can pay it off, but when you have multiple six figures of student loan debt, most people cannot do that in a reasonable amount of time. Number two, you can go on an income-driven plan, make the minimum payment for 25 years, and save for that tax bill. That's the way a lot of people go. Okay. Number three, you can qualify for public service loan forgiveness and get it erased in half the time tax-free. That's the option I provide. And number four is die trying. Those really are the options. So between those four options, when you really break it down, people are able to see that, if I can get out of debt in less than half the time tax-free, that's really the way to go.
Mm. Thank you for answering that. I want to know, how many times did you almost quit in this process? How many times were you like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and then the next day, like, I can't do this another day?
Yeah,
because it's so hard building this.
Yeah, I will say that I almost quit a few times before my first launch. Okay. Once I did my first launch, I've never looked back. Okay. So the first year was really a challenge, because that's when I was still full-time in practice, still, had a new family, lots of obligations, and I wasn't sleeping much because I was trying to get this thing off the ground. So it was stressful. It was stressful for sure. Plus, I was running a for-profit and a nonprofit, so I had a lot going on. And I did get to a few points where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Right.
Yeah.
But then I looked at that little girl with stage 4 cancer, and I remembered my why. And she's now, December of this year, she'll be 6 years cancer-free. When we first met, she was as bald as me. Now her hair is as long as yours, So
yes.
Yeah, I mean, and so now I realized that the impact is what drives me. My clients are taking care of over 10,000 nonprofit visits a month, which is amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I wanted to quit early on, but
oh my God, thank you for that. Say that again. What, your nonprofit is doing? What? Say that again.
So fast forward now, in the 5.5 or 6 years or so that I've been teaching this, by the end of this year, we'll have started over 400 charities, and those doctors are going to save over $100 million, and they're taking care of over 10,000 nonprofit patient visits per month. So those are the numbers that are important to me. You
Oh
know,
my
I know
God.
that as those numbers grow, so does income.
You know what? I literally wrote this down, and I wrote down it's an effort to create something like this. You deserve a standing ovation, right? Just for the
Oh, thank
fact
you.
that, no, truly. I mean, and I'm not even talking, that's just on the creation. And now that I hear like your impact, oh my gosh, I need what I was going to say is I need an applause button. I need a standing ovation applause button. So what great inspiration. So you're not chiropracting anymore, or you do it a little bit, or what's going on there?
I'm not. I'm not. I really miss it. And
Mm,
so, you know, one day I hope to have a little office with a box on the wall, pay what you can, you know, that kind of thing. That's my dream retirement.
mm,
But for now, I also know that the public service loan forgiveness program in and of itself is probably not going to be around forever.
oh,
There's been over 1 million people that have submitted their employment certification form. There's a lot of interest in this program, as complex and difficult, you know, as it is. And so every year in office, President Trump asked Congress to close enrollment in public service loan forgiveness. And they never did, but it put the program on the chopping block,
wow.
where there was always a grandfathering clause that said it once you're enrolled and once you have your student loans, they're not trying to take it away from anyone who is already enrolled,
Yeah.
but they would close enrollment from that point forward to not let the program continue to grow. Congress never changed it. They never did that. So the program survived. President Biden seems very in favor of all of the student loan forgiveness programs, including public service loan forgiveness, and they're making great strides to fix it and make it easier for people. So, you know, political shifts can change, and you know, I'm in this for as long as I can be.
Does it keep you up at night at all? Are you ever, or do you have a connection or a trust factor that, like, if this evaporates, I know there's next, or it's kind of a
Yeah,
personal
you
thing?
know, the cool thing is that because I was fortunate enough, I wound up getting a two comma club award
Yeah.
through this program, which was super fun. I got to shake Russell Brunson's hand, and that
Yeah.
was amazing. And get on stage at Funnel Hacking Live in front of thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah.
That was
What year
super
was
cool.
that? What year was that?
2019,
Yeah. Not Nashville. Was that where was that?
Nashville.
Nashville. Yeah,
Nashville,
sweet.
yeah.
Congratulations. Another
Thank you.
standing out applause button.
Thanks. So that was super fun and a cool accomplishment. But since then, I think just naturally, you know, people hear about that. They find me online somehow through Two Comma Club or whatever. I've had people reach out to me and ask me for help because they're trying to get an online program launched. They're trying
Yes.
to write a webinar. They're trying
Yes.
to go through this process. And the most common thing I hear is, I don't know what to do first. Okay,
Mm.
even if I do that, what do I do next?
Mm.
And so I've really had fun taking on a handful of select clients that, you know, are people who are doing something that I really believe in, that are making the world better, that are helping people with their product or service. And, you know, I've helped a couple of them get to market, get on ClickFunnels, and develop their funnel.
Oh,
So I
fantastic.
do some of that coaching, and I
Yeah.
think that if public service loan forgiveness went away overnight, I would probably have a lot of fun getting into that more.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. What a gift. What, how cool is that to know that can shift there if necessary, or wherever the universe is going to take you, or however you want to
Yeah,
say that, right?
totally.
Yeah, that's super cool. Any upsells, downsells along the way you have, or do you have like a progression for your doctors? So you have your first $5,000 to $7,000 class. Is there a next step for them, or no? You're pretty focused on that.
There's not. There's no upsell, so to speak, as far as that's concerned. But I I do remember reading about how important it is to have a continuity funnel, to have monthly recurring revenue instead of just one chunk at a time.
Yes.
And so I got together about 2 years ago now with the team that I use to do the legal work. So they write the articles of incorporation and bylaws, send that to the state. They send the required documents to the IRS. And so they have a great team, and we put together a compliance program for my clients where we call it the hands-free 501c3 maintenance program.
Okay.
And so that includes help with bookkeeping, payroll, state and federal tax returns, help with their board meetings, compliance questions, all of that. And really that it's $157 a month. We tried to keep it really affordable. And it's an option. Some of my clients choose to keep their nonprofit very low budget, and they do all those things themselves. But for the ones who are really busy, the ones who their nonprofit can afford it, we do have that as, I would say, kind of an upsell. And then as a downsell, the first step in this whole process is making sure that people have the first two requirements. They have the right type of student loans, and that they're on an income-driven repayment plan with the lowest possible monthly payment, because that helps us maximize their savings and cash flow. And so I do a custom student loan plan for people who are on the fence. They're like, show me my numbers. How much can I save before I sign up? So that sometimes I have specials. That's usually somewhere between $297 and $497. But that's a great way for people to get their numbers and see how much they're going to save before they jump into the full program. So really, it's about twice a year I'll send some emails, telling people about the custom student loan plan, and that works great as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for answering it. And next interview, I'm going to ask it more delicately, because upsell and downsell can sound a little salesy, right? But really,
sure.
Here's an added value. If you're a busy medical professional and you're cranking away at your business, and you've created this nonprofit that's thriving, or maybe more than they anticipated or something, you're like, hey, we can maintain your compliance on a monthly basis, so you don't even have to worry about it. It's beautiful, right? Versus, and then you've also got, hey, someone's not ready to, they're like, you know what? I think I'll just start with, like, let's clean up my student loan debt. Let's just clean it up a little bit. Make sure I'm maximizing, interest rates and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. Great.
I mean, there are people that start there, and I show them that they can lower their payments enough where it pays for the full program in and of itself within 2 years or whatever that is. So it's just a nice way to help people save money and provide value quickly. And then if they choose to get started with the full program, great. If not, they've had a great interaction with me, and hopefully they saved a ton of money.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm looking over here a little bit as we're talking. I'm looking at your landing page, the introduction to the webinar. And there was something I saw in there about a group. There's do you have a group associated with this where? Yeah. So all my clients, one of the bonuses that they get is access to a private Facebook group. We have, I think there's over 200 doctors in that group at this point. It might be 250 at this point, but it's a way for them to share resources and provide community support. Sometimes someone will find an article, even though I stay really up to date with the political stuff regarding student loans. Sometimes they find things before me and they post it there, and then I get a chance to comment. So people will have questions about anything, related to their student loans or related to the nonprofit. And we get to provide community support, share referrals, resources that way. Cool. What's sort of the coolest thing you've seen on the group where you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that. That was amazing.
Yeah. To be honest, it was it was a fear that turned into a really cool, powerful moment. So I had somebody who posted that they were flagged for an IRS audit. And it was something that was totally unrelated to their student loans and to the nonprofit. But they wound up posting, as they went through the process, that the nonprofit that we started for them got looked at, and it passed with flying colors. The IRS had no issues with, I'm sorry,
It's
with
okay.
the setup or with any part of that. So that was fantastic for
Yeah.
everyone in the group to see. We cross our T's, we dot our I's, we teach it a certain way, and we
Yes.
do that because that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
There's only one way, in my opinion, if you're going to go down this path, and that's the right way.
That's beautiful. Ian, thank you so much. I had one other question. It just escaped me. Maybe that means we should be done. Oh, but I wanted to tell anybody watching and listening, either go into the show notes or click below erasemystudentloans.com. Click on that link and you can check out the webinar and just get all the quality information. And if it makes sense and you want to reorganize your debt or start a nonprofit, help save the world and wipe it off the books, or what have you, click on that link and learn. I guess my next question is there like a break-even point you have? So if someone's got like $10,000 in student loan debt, obviously, you know what, probably not, I'm not your guy. Is it like,
Right.
what's that number and above?
It's not so much a specific number of an amount of student loan debt, although I will give you that number.
Okay.
It's their debt relative to their income.
Mm.
Because, for example, if they have $50,000 of student loan debt, but they have no income, then the $50,000 is still going to be there plus interest 10 years from now.
Yes.
Right. So, that's why it's related to their income versus if they have $50,000 of student loan debt and they make $250,000 a year, they're going to pay that off before they qualify for forgiveness. Right. So that's why it's debt relative to their income. And for the most part, I would say, if your monthly payment is at or below interest, meaning if your debt is not going down,
yes,
then that's how we know that this might be a good option for you. And I would say that at a minimum, I typically want to see somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000 of student loan debt, to take on a client. However, I have had clients that have $750,000 of student loan debt. So it's no joke. As a naturopathic doctors right now are graduating with 400,000. Dentists are graduating with 400,000.
What?
And some people have multiple degrees. So yeah, and then on top of, let's say you graduated with $400,000 of student loan debt and you didn't have a substantial income right out of school. 5 years later, that might be significantly higher. So that's why we start to see people who have $500,000 plus, debts. That those are really my favorite clients because there's no way they're paying that off, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, so they could actually be thriving as a practice and have a ton of income, but the burden of that debt is
right.
It's heavy, right? Like
right.
you can't, especially if you're growing a family and doing all that and have a house and those
totally
sort of things.
There are statistics now on student debt related suicides and student debt related divorces and it's miserable. So I would say for anyone in those kind of positions, there's help.
It's amazing. And so I just want to recap one thing. If what I'm hearing you say is if someone's making $1 million a year and they have $100,000 in loan debt and they have no other debt, like that's not your guy because they can just effectively pay it off quick anyway, right? Like
Correct.
Just pay it off versus going through the hoops of paying me all this stuff. Is that effectively what I heard you say?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
That being said, I do have clients who are earning in excess of $250,000 a year. So, but again, if you're earning 250, but you have $500,000 of debt, that's why it's not just a picture of how much debt you have, it's debt and income.
I get it. It's like the debt to income ratio, if you wanted to call it like that, right? And it's the whole debt to income ratio, right? Like by the time you have your car payment in there, maybe some credit card payments in there, maybe some, right? Once you put that whole picture together, it's like, yeah, you could be making a lot, but that totally. The debt load. Okay, you've answered the question. I don't mean to browbeat that anymore. Did you want to clarify there? Because I didn't mean to dilute that message if I did.
No worries. And I'm happy to have people check out the web class, make sure that this is something that they want to pursue, get the information. And if they're not sure on those numbers, jump on a call with me. We can always start with the custom student loan plan. That's why I have that option to run the numbers for them. And I also provide 2 money back guarantees in my program because I want to make it a no-brainer. So the first guarantee is that after they sign up, when I do the first step and I look at what type of loans they have, what repayment plan they're in, I estimate how much they can expect to save by qualifying for public service loan forgiveness. And if I can't provide an estimate of 1,000% return on their investment, basically meaning the program itself is 5,000. If I'm not going to show them that they're going to qualify for at least $50,000 in savings, then I give them an opportunity to have a refund. And then the second guarantee that I make is it's their responsibility from that point forward to complete the steps in the student loan eraser and go through the course and with my help and guidance. But once they complete the process, the last step is that they send a document to the Department of Education, letting them know that they now have qualified employment, and they get a letter back letting them know how many payments they've made or how many months they have that count towards public service loan forgiveness. Okay. So they know they're in. If they get denied, we work with them until they get approved or they get a refund. So it has to work, or I don't feel that I deserve to keep the payment.
That's amazing. That is amazing. That's amazing. And thank you for explaining it that way. That's clear and concise. Like that's almost if you fit the person that can use help, that you can help clean up their debt load, serve community. Like if they fit that model, if you aren't able to come through, it's a no-lose situation. That's powerful. Wow. I know you're a busy guy. I know you've got a son out there still and all that. And so I want you to let you get back to your day, but I want to tell everybody again, I'm looking at it. It's a beautiful landing page, very concise, easy to figure out what to do. EraseMyStudentLoans.com. The link will be in the show notes as well, but absolutely click on it. And just the impact, I'm getting the chills by the impact that you're bringing is really, truly beautiful and inspirational. So thank you for that, Ian, Dr. Ian Hoffman. I'm going to hit stop and then we'll say goodbye offline. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Misha. I appreciate the opportunity.
Indeed. Cheers. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.